Ages 18 to 20. I finished high school and had applied to Niagara University, located upstate New York. I had a roommate called Rhonda, who was very nice. Besides the fact we didn't have the same political beliefs, I was a Republican and she was Democratic. We got along quite well. I had the opportunity of meeting someone who was from the Baltimore area. We were paired together with two others because we were in a nursing program. She lived in a woman's dorm. Niagara was comprised of a high percentage of Caucasians, with low percentages of Native Americans, Asians, and children of African descent. Besides the beautiful view of the waterfalls in Niagara, the moon was beautiful to gaze at. Due to the location of Niagara University, or the city of Niagara Falls, the moon could be seen as if sitting on top of the dorm building. The view was up close and personal and left me chills to think I could see the moon and indentations on it. The only time I saw it so close was when it was full and yellow in color at Niagara University, New York. My semester at Niagara was characterized by a lot of studying. I spent so much time studying at school. I did poorly and wondered why the students who drank alcohol heavily, involved in promiscuous activities, or did drugs did well in school. Towards the end of the semester, I got into the habit of going to the club once a week, but didn't put off my studying. With time, my grades improved. Perhaps if I played basketball or was active in sports, I would have had the same result and done well in school. It's all about the time management and having healthy activities that keeps the mind engaged. I had the opportunity of going to a club in Canada. Because the university was so close to Canada, it was easy to get there within minutes. I and my friends hung out at the club, danced for some time, and headed back home. At times, I'd go to the club and wouldn't get back home till 4 a.m. At the university, a few basketball players had the habit of recording their sexual activities and selling it on campus. Although this was popular among the guys on the campus, the females involved were embarrassed and ashamed. They had fell for the oldest trick. At times, the victims would retaliate and call the guy or guys derogatory terms on the basketball court as they played against other teams. I felt college life to be a lonely experience. I felt college life to be a lonely experience. Although surrounded by peers, teachers, and the school, I had the sense that there was an air of loneliness in the air. Couldn't put my finger on it. Teens and young adults were searching for love and a sense of longing, and we had come to college to get an education and someone we could bond with. A lot of times, bonding with the wrong crowd ended up with hangovers, date rape episodes, and a sense of unworthiness. But all in all, we were all trying to fit in with the crowd and avoid the sense of loneliness we felt to fill up the void. At times, recklessness resulted in unwanted pregnancies, performing unsupervised abortions, the latter resulting in serious health issues for the mom and a sense of regret for the father of the child. For Thanksgiving, I went to the home of my friend, Angela Kliss, since my hometown, Washington, D.C., was too far to go. Her family were in part Polish and proud of their roots. For Christmas, I went home to D.C. and only went back to school in January to collect my belongings. I decided I didn't want to live on campus anymore and decided living on campus wasn't for me. I didn't say goodbye to anyone on campus. I did meet Becky. We were born on the same day, May 5th. She was the last person I saw on my floor before heading back to Washington, D.C. Since I wanted to surprise my siblings, I sent them a box filled with socks, boxes, and underwear. I came back home and saw my mom, who said she didn't even have time to get to the box because my siblings had gotten to it and opened it up. She only saw the evidence, a torn up brown box that held contents. To my disappointment, I learned from my siblings my parents had separated. My siblings had responded there was nothing they could do to stop them from fighting, and that it was best for them to be separated. Before going to Niagara University, I would come between my dad and my mom and stop them from fighting. So in my absence, my siblings hadn't done anything to encourage my parents to stay together, but accepted the fact their relationship was best if both parties lived separately. Not only did my parents suffer from the separation, but I and my siblings all suffered also. As my mother hit menopause, mood swings increased. I felt it was time to live with my dad. One time as I sat in the living room with Dad, I fell asleep. In my dream, the setting was a womb. It was dark around me, yet I felt I was extremely loved. What does being in love or love or feeling in love feel like as a fetus at that moment in time. I felt that all my needs were met and that I didn't have to worry about anything. All I had to do was receive, being cared for, being nurtured by someone who wanted to show me I was so important to them. My vision, my dream. I dreamed. I remembered not being able to breathe because I used my mouth to do the breathing. I was trying to imitate the motions I did as an adult did and realized it was pointless, and it was to my best interest to stay put and just savor the moment. When I woke up startled, gasping for air. I realized I wasn't a fetus anymore and could use my nose to breathe. What a relief! Oof. I told my dad about the experience and was informed that type of experience is not humanly possible to fathom. But I, not being myself, felt there was more to the story. God was trying to tell me my life is in its early stages are precious moments, just as a real natural birth, an adult-sized person, and an elderly person. Human life is very important in the Creator's eyes and has a purpose in the universe. The surreal experience questioned me in my early 20s to value human life, and if you're alive, it's because someone greater than you believes in your existence. There are other accounts that validate birth. A long time ago, God spoke to a man called Jeremiah and said, I chose you before I formed you in the womb. I set you apart before you were born. I appointed you to be a prophet to the nations. Another account is the story of Elizabeth and Mary. When Mary goes to visit Elizabeth, her cousin, the baby inside her leaps for joy as he hears Mary's voice. And Elizabeth, who was touched by God's Spirit, goes into a discourse on how fortunate she was to hear her cousin Mary say, You are the most blessed of women, and your child will be blessed. How could this happen to me? The mother of my Lord should come to me. For you see, when the sound of your greeting reached my ears, the baby leaped for joy inside me. She who has believed is blessed, because what was spoken to her by the Lord will be fulfilled. The feeling of being loved in my dream was interpretation of God's presence. God is love, and He was with me and knew what I was going through as a fetus. He wanted to assure me that He's always with me, like the incessant waterfall that pours down the cliffs. So too, He was trying to tell me He loves me so much, and that love can only be interpreted as an unconditional love without limits, without walls, without boundaries. Despite the fact that I was surrounded by darkness, His love within me surrounded my tiny body within the womb of my precious mother, that forced me to keep on living, keep on going, to keep on thriving, and that He was going to be with me through it all, good and bad times. Bad times. God's love nurtured me in the womb, and His love nurtures countless numbers of people who forget to realize that, as I almost did, all lives matter. I did some grocery shopping, sometimes consuming most of the food before Dad got a chance to eat it. At that time, I had decided to go to Montgomery College and pursue nursing. I was working at my job at McDonald's when a teacher told me about giving my resume to a friend of hers that would place me in its student program. In those days, I sent my resume via fax and went in for an interview and got the job. The job paid me good money, but I felt guilty about having it. In high school, we were taught social justice and the importance of recognizing the needs of others. In high school, we did a lot of community outreach events such as work at soup kitchens, walk marathons for good causes, make sandwiches for the homeless, and go out on the streets to hand them sandwiches. I recall working in the soup kitchen also in the 8th grade. I guess that experience had prepared me for what I would be facing later on in life, as I have had opportunities to see poverty at different levels and had first-hand experiences of being homeless on different occasions. As I continued reading the Bible, I read a passage in Deuteronomy that talks about not worshiping man-made images that look like birds in the air or the animals on the earth or the beasts that are in the sea. I pondered about this verse and asked my Catholic priest why we had statues of Mary and Jesus in the church, and he said that they are to remind us they once existed, but I wasn't satisfied with that answer, and so I continued soul-searching. I finished high school and started to work at McDonald's. I met Christians there, and they invited me to their church, where I met wonderful friends. They called me a sister and saw me as their family. The name of the church was El Calvario. It was in Maryland, but I lived in Washington, D.C. at the time. At the time, I was too afraid to abandon the Catholic Church because I didn't want my dad to disapprove of my decision. It was only years later I realized the only way for me to be a regular non-Catholic church attendee would be to be disowned by my parents. After spending a semester or two at Montgomery College, I realized there was no point in me going back to school. As a DC resident, I was charged twice to tuition. At the time, I worked part-time with the Environmental Agency program. I wanted to follow my dream of becoming a nursing assistant, which I ended up doing. Since I no longer wanted to go to school, my parents had given me a week to make my decision, either to go back to school and stay home or stop going to school and live elsewhere. I called my grade school friend Rodrigo and asked if he knew of anywhere I could live or if I could come live with him. He said no. Then I asked my teacher who had referred me to the government job if I could live with her, and she said no. But she said she knew a place that could take me in, the Dorothy Day House, a shelter for women and their children. My teacher had mentioned I could try the family shelter, and so that was my last hope. I told my family that I would no longer live with them and that I could no longer go to school, so I packed my things and went up to the shelter. It was difficult getting to the shelter because no taxi cab drivers wanted to pick me up. During the late 1990s to early 200s, taxi cab drivers who drove in the roughest neighborhoods in Washington, D.C. were getting killed by their own race and were afraid of giving rights to black people. During the evening to night hours, many taxi cab drivers ignored me as I made hand gestures for them to stop. Fortunately, a Nigerian taxi cab driver stopped and gave me a ride, to which I happily tipped him $20. At the shelter, I was allowed to have the free time I wanted, freedom to go to the church I wanted to go to, so I stopped going so I started going to many non-Catholic churches. And when the pastor asked if anyone wanted to receive Jesus as their Lord and Savior, I said yes. I had a good time and went to different church services throughout the week. I remember fasting on one occasion from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. It felt like my head was on fire and I didn't understand, but I remembered reading from the book of Acts when Jesus' disciples spoke in different languages, and it said they had fire on their heads as the Holy Spirit had descended on them. Since most of my friends were of Spanish descent, I got to practice my high school Spanish and in latter years had been used as a translator on different occasions. I had great friends that helped me establish a good relationship with God, and my relationship with God brought me closer to Him, to have more dreams that were heavenly inspired. After living at the family shelter for 7 months, I decided to move into a house and rent a room with a Guatemalan family that arrived to the United States. They had a big family. The eldest son was already here in the United States, working in construction. The latter arrived 5 siblings, 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Their father had more children in Guatemala, and the children made sure they were part of their lives, would call them frequently, not realizing the phone bills would run extremely high. The girls practiced the occult briefly and were surprised to realize their bread would rise and had experienced strange things happening to them. At the time, I didn't know the landlady was into the occult, so every time she would arrive to pick up the rent from the family, my lights would flicker. At times, I woke up to pray at 3 a.m. in the morning to hear someone knocking on my second-floor window. Of course, I would ignore it and keep on praying. I realized the knocking was just a distraction. Praying seemed to aggravate whoever I was up against because several tactics were used to prevent me from praying. Nightmares. My body paralyzed. I couldn't wake up at the normal time to pray, and a visible spirit would follow me when I went to the bathroom. At times I would say, Jesus te reprenda. Jesus rebukes you. My religious life had filtrated into the lives of the younger ones in such an extreme that at one point the youngest daughter said she wanted to sleep in my room because she was scared at night. But hearing me say, Jesus te reprenda, Jesus rebukes you, gave her a tremendous sense of peace. The night she came into my room to sleep, I found an invisible war going on. I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to wake her up. But suddenly my mouth opened and the voice I heard was not my own. It was the voice of a man that rebuked the demon and it fled immediately. My dad came to visit me and insisted that I come back home. My parents needed healing, and I knew it wasn't the right time to speak and live with them. Once, a long time ago, a jailer asked a Christian, "Why do I need to be saved?" The prisoner replied to the jailer, "Just believe in Jesus Christ and you and your whole household will be saved. God has been faithful, bringing my family members to acknowledge Him through various means. When Angela was in transition to St. Elizabeth's and Mom's apartment, she told me of times when she sensed God's blessings and felt Him doing wonders in her life. He has healed her of many diseases and ailments. At church, the doors were open at 5 a.m. for early morning prayer. I went there as frequently as I could. On one occasion, I was singing church songs, and about 3/8 of a mile, I saw Satan trying to keep up with my pace. I saw him and surprisingly didn't feel scared. I knew it was him and just kept on singing to God. Being part of the youth group meant we had opportunities to be together, share dreams, visions, and insights we received from the Holy Spirit. There were countless events that occurred during my Christian walk with God, and all of them prepared me for the next stage, and that would be to engage in spiritual warfare. There came a stage in my life when, as a new Christian, I had a hunger that could only be satisfied by reading the Bible. At those moments, I read chapters and different books within a short period of time. My mistake was when this hunger stage had ended, I wanted to read the Bible over and over again, not realizing I didn't have the mental capacity to understand what I was reading, because I was not sharing what I read from the Bible with anyone around me. In a sense, I stunted my Christian growth. As a new Christian, I wanted to do everything perfect. I started making my own skirts. I would go to the fabric store and come back home making long skirts. At church, my former dress was normally a long sleeve sweater, shirt, or blouse, accompanied by a long skirt. I remember at church had cautioned me about imposing my views of dress to the family I lived with. Up to that point, I hadn't influenced anyone to dress like me, but later, when I would take on the task to preach to women near the train station at my job, I informed them to be cautious about what they wear, to better yet wear skirts and dresses instead of pants. During my early Christian years, I developed the habit of buying large volumes of Christian literature and giving it to random people on the street. I would buy Bibles in Spanish and give them to people. Other times, I bought books from the author Mary Baxter titled Divine Revelation of Hell, another book titled Divine Revelation of Heaven, and gave them to co-workers and to people on the bus. These books were based on her testimony and what it is like to be in heaven and hell. A book that impacted me and I shared with people, written in English and Spanish. He came to set the captives free. El vino a dar libertad a los cautivos by Rebecca Brown. Dr. Rebecca Brown. The book impacted me in such a way I felt I was fighting against demons. While I was working at the nursing home, the mattress would rise a few inches from the base, and the way demons were trying to scare me into not reading the book because other people I had given the book to had told me they couldn't read the book. For best results, it's recommended to pray and fast before reading the book, so a person wouldn't be intimidated by demons. I decided to leave my Spanish family to live with another one and would still try to visit them as much as I could. One time I bought them a bag of groceries. I remember when I lived at the shelter as a new Christian, I had newfound liberty to do what I wanted, but that liberty had a price. Since I legally belonged to God, because I recognized my existence was dependent on Him, and Jesus Christ's Son. When I made decisions on my own, I heard the voice of a man ask me, "Did you ask me for permission?" As I brought groceries to the Moran family, I was met by the breadwinner. I heard the same voice ask me internally, "Did you ask me for permission?" I felt embarrassed. For a time, I didn't think I needed to ask anyone for permission. But in this case, it was necessary. I was always under Satan's attacks. When I lived in a home, because of many things that had happened there, had given Satan access to torment and taunt me while I was there, and at the same time, I felt God's protection many times. I knew He was near. God knew I couldn't bear living there, and it was just a matter of time I would leave. When I left the family, Mr. Moran became a Christian, and the children grew up to become mature adults. Spanish youth of the church informed me of a woman that did signs and wonders and miracles. I was into church and miracles. I knew that miracles happened at any given time. I didn't have any hesitations about finding out who this person was. I went over to our home condominium one evening and thought I would see signs and miracles right there and then, but I didn't. I asked if I could live in her home, and she said yes. I was informed by Jesus Christ that the Christian life is not a life of roses. So far, I had seen my life as a life of roses primarily because I didn't have to answer to anyone else but to God and His representatives, Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, and angels, the religious leader in my congregation, and myself. With a Christian adult to answer to, but Christianity would be put to the test. There were many times when I believed my opinions and mannerisms were justified, only to find out they were not justified. As a Christian, I've learned God guides, or better yet, instructs people what they should do and say for His glory and honor, and not for the honor of humanity. God has allowed me to be surrounded by people that were equipped with spiritual warfare, performing deliverance. Oftentimes, for a number of years, God would lead these people into my life to instruct me to give up habits that didn't allow me to clearly hear Him or expel evil spirits that came through ancestral worship of XYZ, curses that ran through my family line, or doors I had opened to Satan. I'm grateful these people said yes to God, and He used them to perform spiritual deliverance. I remember on one occasion seeing in a vision my youngest brother, Ifani Paul, had a knife pointing towards him. It wasn't until years later I had confronted him about the vision I saw, and he said he had thoughts of suicide. But I'm glad now he's alive, he's well, and that type of mindset is no longer in his thought pattern. God called them just like He did Isaiah. When God had looked for a messenger to speak to the Israelites, Isaiah basically said, "Here I am, take me." And overall, I thank God for giving me new life through Jesus Christ. I truly began to live when He gave me His Spirit, that heartfelt emotion, the same I felt in my mother's womb, the same I felt when I exclaimed, "Jesus exists, Jesus exists," when I was 14 years of age. Remember, Jesus Christ once told me, "The Christian life is not a life of roses." God has been faithful. In the title, I have been faithful. He has been all the more faithful. In the little, I have been faithful. He has been all the more faithful. To His name be the glory. God will always belong. Glory will always belong to God and to Jesus Christ. I thank Him for His Spirit and the work He continues to do in me and those around me.